Yes, hello guys. This is Mr. Melmar Molera. I'm doing my voice recording about my assigned topic and environmental issues and concerns, which is the chapter 8 entitled Nuclear Radiation Accidents and Safety. So nuclear radiation accidents and safety is defined by International Atomic Energy Agency. It's an event that has led to significant consequences to people, to the environment, or to the facility. It includes lethal effects to individuals, radioactive isotopes to the environment, and the major accidents. So serious nuclear accidents have been few and far between, but their stories will help prevent future catastrophes. There have been 3 major reactor accidents in the history of civil nuclear power: the 3 Mile Island, the Chernobyl, and the Fukushima. So these are the only major accidents to have occurred in over 17,000 cumulative reactor years of commercial nuclear power operation in 33 countries. So let's start at the Fukushima, Japan. So what's happened there? It happens when the earthquake and tsunami that struck eastern Japan on March 11, 2011 caused a serious accident at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant on the northeastern coast of Japan. A tsunami flooded and damaged the plants, which 3 active reactors leads to hydrogen explosion. Lost backup electrical power led to overheating, meltdowns, and evacuations. The radiation releases from the damaged reactors contaminated a wide area surrounding the plant, forced the evacuation of nearly 500,000 residents. 1 man died suddenly while carrying equipment during the cleanup, and 3 plus labor accidents. So next is the Chernobyl, which is the world's considered nuclear disaster to date. So what happened in Ukraine? The Ukraine which is the former Soviet Union. So what happened in Ukraine on April 26, 1986? It happened when a flawed reactor design and inadequately trained personnel lead to a failed backup operator test. The workers did not implement adequate safety precautions on alert operators to the electrical test risk. His lack of awareness led the operations to engage actions that diverge from safety procedures. This test led to a power surge which overheated the fuel rods of reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl power plant, causing an explosion and meltdown. Estimated up to 4,000 possible cancer death threats. Next is the 3 Mile Island. So what happened in the Middletown, Pennsylvania, USA on March 28, 1978? It happens when the accident began with failures in the non-nuclear secondary system, followed by a human-operated relief valve in the primary system that stuck open, which allowed large amounts of nuclear reactor coolant to escape. Although it resulted in only small radioactive release, the 3 Mile Island Unit 2 is considered the most serious nuclear accident in U.S. history. Next is the Enrico Fermi Unit 1. So what's happened in the Frenchtown Charter Township in Michigan, USA on October 5, 1966? The accident happened when a vibration caused a component within the reactor vessel to loosen, which blocked coolant flow when hydrodynamic forces carried it up in the fuel subassembly's inlet nozzle. The workers did not notice what had occurred until core temperature alarms sounded. Up to 700 degrees Fahrenheit, causing them to melt. We all know that, as you all know rather, the Fermi Unit 1 was the nation's first and only commercially operating liquid metal fast breeder reactor. So after that accident, after was shut down for repairs, it was returned to partial operation periodically until 1972. But it was never again fully operational. So it was officially decommissioned in 1972. Next is the SL Unit 1. So what happens in the Idaho Falls, Idaho, USA on January 3, 1961? The accident happens when the withdrawal of a single control rod caused a catastrophic power surge and steam explosion at the SL-1 boiling water reactor that killed all the workers on duty at that time. So the workers were in the process of reattaching to their drive mechanism control rods, so they had disconnected earlier that day to enable test equipment to be inserted in the reactor core. They lifted the central control rod 20 inches instead of the 4 inches that was required. So this error caused the reactor to go critical and its power up to 6,000 times higher than its normal level in less than a second. So as a result, the nuclear fuel vaporized and a steam bubble was created and expanded quickly that pushed water above against the reactor vessel, which caused it to jump out of its support structure. So the 3 workers on duty received lethal doses of radiation. Next is the sodium reactor experiment. So what happened in Los Angeles, California, USA in July 1959? An accident happened when a partial meltdown occurred at the sodium reactor experiment due to cooling flow blockage that caused the reactor core to overheat. So the sodium reactor experiment experienced extensive fuel damage during a power run. 13 of 43 fuel elements overheated when the cooling flow provided by the liquid sodium was blocked by tetraline. Tetraline is an oil-like fluid which had leaked into the primary sodium loop during prior power runs. So this overheating caused the reactor core to fail. Fission products leak from the primary sodium loop into the high B area, which is a region inside the building housing the reactor. Others flowed with the helium-covered gas over the liquid sodium and the reactor pool to gaseous storage tanks. And the last is the Windscale accident. In Cumberland, now Cumbria, UK, on October 10, 1957. So what's happened? So before the accident, the Unit 1 was activated to release built-up energy in the graphite of the core. The fuel was cooler than the normal operating temperature and was warming more slowly than expected. Then, a second release led to a higher temperature than workers expected. The temperature was more than 750 degrees Fahrenheit. So the air was vented to cool. But the reactor caught in fire, which led to ignite an estimated 11 tons of uranium. The workers first used carbon dioxide to try to put out the fire, but they were failed. And next, they used water, which eventually succeeded. So it took 3 days to put out the fire. But then, the radiation escaped and reached as far as mainland Europe. More than 200 cancer deaths to that disaster. And it is considered to have been the worst accident that occurred in the West. So radiation and nuclear accidents involve the discharge of radioactive materials outside the containers or facilities. Such an accident could happen if a complication arose during the transportation or use of radioactive materials for radiation and nuclear accident involve the discharge of radioactive materials outside the containers or facilities. Such an accident happened if a complication arose or a serious operational problem occurred. The most serious accident would start from overheating of the reactor core at a nuclear power plant. However, safety mechanisms are in place to prevent such an accident from occurring. First, we should understand the consequences for human health. The discharge of radioactive materials can affect human health. It can increase the risk of developing cancer, and the impact on health depends on the intensity of the source of radiation, proximity, the type of radiation, and the exposure time. People may be exposed to internal irradiation, mainly concerns on personnel at nuclear power plants. Second is internal contamination, which is caused by breathing in radioactive elements or by ingesting contaminated food or water. because the radioactive elements can enter the body through a wound. Third is the external contamination. When the radioactive dust settles on the skin, hair, and clothing. Another is find out about facilities are at risk in your own area. We must know if there are some nuclear plant in our place so that we can always be ready if something happened. Third is, in the event of a nuclear accident, take shelter. So the first step in the event of a nuclear accident is to take shelter. Do not attempt to return to your home if you have taken shelter elsewhere, such as shopping center. Your safety is ensured by the personnel, police, or firefighters. Keep the children at school or daycare center as they are sheltered and safe there. Do not take shelter in a car, since a vehicle is not as effective as a building to protect you from radioactive materials. But if you don't have a choice, close the windows and the ventilation system of your car if you have no choice than to take shelter in it. Next is take iodine tablets if prescribed. When recommended by the Director of Public Health, take the prescribed dose of iodine tablets. But be sure in taking iodine tablets, some people are known allergic to iodine, which there are secondary effects of iodine tablets. The mild and temporary discomfort may occasionally occur. Next is follow the instructions of the authorities. In the event of a nuclear accident, consult the media for instructions issued by the authorities. And in the event of environmental contamination, the authorities may prohibit consumption of fresh food and water or certain outdoor activities because the radioactive releases can contaminate to different degrees such that air, water, soil, and food within a radius that may vary depending on the circumstances. Next is evacuate your home. So the authorities may order the preventive evacuation of a sector prior to the possible release of radioactive materials, or the evacuation center within a close perimeter of the accident in the event of prolonged exposure to radioactive releases. Last is know what to do after a disaster. Consult the after a disaster section to learn instructions and recommendations for getting back to normal, safe manner. So that's all for my report. Thank you and keep safe. Bye.